If you're going to get a multivitamin and you want to get a good supplement, you normally are going to have to pay a little bit more. And it does help to go to a natural health food store because they'll tend to be able to give you stuff that's going to be a lot better. If it's cheaper, it's normally going to have a lot of a filler. You go to Costco, it's probably not getting what you're really looking for. So one of the things that to kind of test it out, and this is why we do the nutritional blood testing, is because seeing what you need to get. And then one thing we do at our office is we sell our supplements at the Amazon price. And the reason we do that is our goal is I'd rather be a lot more healthy people out there making just $1 off each supplement versus the idea of making $20 or $30 off each supplement, because then that becomes out of the range of everybody over time. But then the other thing too is the fact that most people will think, oh, well, it's the same thing. And you can tell them it's not the same thing. This one's going to be better. This is going to be better. But they're still going to go, well, on Amazon, this one's $10. The one you want me to buy is $20. Money's tight right now. I'm going to go ahead and get the $10 one.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Eric Sims, who will help us live a healthier life. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward. How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. I've said it many times, health is wealth, and unfortunately, we don't have a healthcare system for the average person, and so much of what you hear is wrong. I met Eric at an event with Steve D. Sims. You might remember Steve from episode 374, Go for Stupid. We had an amazing time at Steve's Speakeasy hanging out in New York City. And I wanted to share insights from that event. Today is just one of the people that I met. We'll have more on. His name's Eric Sims. He's a chiropractor located in Walton, Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati. He's been in practice now for 18 years and specializes in soft tissue and biomechanical movement restorations. I know he helped me, helped my wife. We're going to talk today about what it really means to be healthy. Let's meet Eric and find out how. Welcome to Richer Soul, Eric Sims. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate it, buddy. Great to be here.
And I am excited for our conversation. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Okay, well, that's actually a great question because both of my parents worked for big companies. My dad worked in the body shop of Ford at the Hazelwood plant in St. Louis, Missouri. And my mom worked for McDonnell Douglas for a while, and then Boeing, and then went to EDS. And both of them had issues at times when I was a kid with layoffs. And so there were times where they talked a lot about money, and it would be, okay, hey, we can't rent any videos from the video store this month because your mom's going to be laid off for a little while and we're going to have to hold off. And, one of the bad things my dad would kind of say is, we got to watch our money. Otherwise we're going to be sleeping on the street. So we got to be careful about stuff, So it kind of created a scarcity mindset at times that I still deal with at times today, that you don't really realize you've learned it until you kind of learn a little bit more about money and you're like, son of a gun, man. So it's something I deal with. It's something I deal with from time to time. But school wise, like I went to parochial school, so I went to a Lutheran school first through eighth grade, and the problem with that is that there's a lot of times people, especially religious people, will tend to like make money an evil thing, and God talks about it all the time in the Bible. Money's a blessing. He's going to bless you all the time, and the issue is that a lot of people have that scarcity mindset kind of in that small community kind of thought. And, it's really kind of funny because as my parents got better with money as time went on, they had issues and stuff like that. They had to foreclose on the house because the house was literally falling down the hill because they had built on a hill and they had plastic soils. And so the state had come through, they had dynamited the road. And when they did that, that shifted the bedrock and it shifted the house. And so the house was about to like literally roll down the hill. And so my dad, instead of trying to fix it because it would have been a $200,000 fix, he foreclosed on it. And, they declared bankruptcy. And then quite honestly, they dug themselves back out and they're doing great now. So they've had some money lessons and, a lot of things, but, kind of seeing their journey and kind of where they've gone. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot after being married and, running a business for a few years and then getting divorced and running a business still. That's quite the thing. So, I think in the last 3 years, I've learned more about money and what to do, what not to do as far as investments. What sounds good is not always good, but that's the thing. You hear about a good idea, you think it's going to be great. And then, you just got to watch yourself. So that was a very long answer for a very short question. I apologize.
No, these answers always tend to go extremely long. Everyone likes to hear the story and understand how it came to be. It sounds like the state did not take responsibility for what they did, and insurance didn't cover it.
That's exactly right. What they did is they eminent domain the land from my dad and paid pennies on the dollar. And my dad actually had to fight because we had woods on this land too. And so he had to fight to get the wood too, because, they were going to take the wood and just sell it. And so, he had to fight for a while, but still you can't fight City Hall, kind of one of those things. And so he only got so much compared to what, really the land was worth and everything.
That's a shame. But he got to rebuild, which was nice.
He did. He's very blessed.
What were the money lessons you learned going into business?
Going into business, it's hard because as chiropractors, we tend to have this issue with, we want to help everybody. And you sometimes come in with a poor man mindset of I'm doing this and I should want to help everybody and not have to charge or not charge as much. And then, you kind of realize, well, especially since I do the ART on everybody, you got to charge a little bit more because you're taking a little bit more time with every person and you got to do a little bit more. And the other thing is about 3 years ago, I was getting divorced. I was trying to up my game and I was really trying to improve myself. So I had a group of coaches that were doing this thing called Quest 7. And basically what it was trying to get 7 figures of passive income and 7 figures of active income. And it was $52,000 for the year. And it was not worth $52,000, because the investment, none of the investments panned out. It was a lot of money. I put myself in debt because I started coaching with a couple other people. One of them was Steve Sims. He was the one who actually taught me a bunch of stuff. And, that was actually worth it. And, that's why, I continue to go to the speakeasies and do the mastermind group, the distillery, just because I have learned so much from him and his people. So, of course, meeting people like yourself, where I get people that, bring me new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And I love that. So anyway, what I did is I ended up borrowing from a company, those companies you see online, On Deck and stuff like that. And I didn't realize that was legalized loan sharking. Because we're going to give you this. By the way, we're going to charge you 52% interest, and it was like, oh, did not realize that's what was happening. So I have been digging myself out of that hole over time. And like I said, I was a little bit desperate there for a while, but, I'm very blessed and we're digging out.
And Steve's been on the podcast too. So for those of you who want to go listen to that episode, it's there as well. I will say on the business side, I think it's even worse than on the personal side. I don't think the same protections are there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times loans like that on the business side, they take your money automatically as it's coming in.
Yeah.
And so you don't realize how much that's going to crush your cash flow immediately. And it's a very difficult place to be in. And I don't think people always understand what they're signing up for and the struggle that they're about to get themselves.
I know I didn't. So I've learned my lesson.
It's good to hear that. So you mentioned you're a chiropractor. Why did you choose to go into chiropractic?
So I went into chiropractic because my dad actually, as I said, he worked for Ford. And he ended up injuring himself because back in the day, his job was to take the left side of the Aerostar, pick it up, and move it over to the assembly line, push a button. And he was doing that about every 45 seconds. And so he was carrying it one day. And the problem is the edges were razor sharp so that you would get better welds, for the machine. And he stepped on, they used to be covered with fish oil because fish oil was cheap. Okay, and it kept them from rusting. And the problem was there was a little puddle there. He stepped on it. He did a Charlie Brown, and he landed on his back. And he basically herniated L4, L5, L5S1, and he bulged L2, L3, L3, L4. And so he went to the nurse. Nurse sent him to a surgeon. The surgeon, this is 1988, by the way. And the surgeon basically said to him, you need to get surgery. Once you have this surgery, you're going to have a few years. You're probably going to need another surgery. And after that, in about 5 years after that, you'll probably be in a wheelchair. And my dad was like, okay. And he's like, well, what are the odds of success? He's like, well, 1 in 10 people, don't make it off the table. And he's like, so you're saying 10% of the people getting this surgery die on the table? And he's like, yeah. And my dad's like, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go try my chiropractor. And the surgeon went nuts because the surgeon was like, that's a bunch of hooey, blah, blah, blah. Well, my dad went to our family chiropractor that we were going to. And 6 weeks later, he's running around coaching soccer again. And he's 72 years old now. And he is still out there digging ditches, putting up fencing, homesteading, basically. All that stuff. Very active man. And, he sells real estate. So he's a realtor now. And he basically, somebody has a plumbing issue, he'll dig up the plumbing and all that, do all that stuff, all the stuff that, a lot of people would be like, I can't believe you do that. But because of going to a chiropractor, he's back to saved and he was out running around again.
And the problem with surgery is once you do it, there is no going back.
There's no going back. That's the problem because once you cut, you're done. There's a lot. I mean, if they put any hardware in there, you limit your ability to fix things and change things to such a high level that, and it's not to say some people do need the surgery. I understand that, but it's like exhaust every option first beforehand because there's no going back. Like you said,
tough choices. And so I guess that inspired you to want to be a chiropractor.
It did because I was always good with my hands. I used to do a lot of my dad, because he worked nights, I only got to see him for like an hour in the morning. And so quite honestly, I used to rub my dad's feet every morning because he was working on concrete all night at the Ford plant. And so I would just sit there and rub his feet every morning. And, I would work on his neck while he was driving us to school and stuff like that, just massaging, I'm 8 years old, not really knowing what I'm doing, but I'm just doing stuff. And I always felt really good with my hands. And because of that, it was one of those where I was inspired to go to chiropractic school. And I didn't like the medical model that was coming about where it was like everything was just handled by a pill. There wasn't a lot of physical medicine being done. And I liked physical medicine. So
that hasn't changed.
It has not.
And so one of the additional things that you do is something called ART therapy. Mm-hmm. And I learned about ART therapy from Tim Ferriss when he wrote The 4 Hour Body, which has got to be oh my God, is that 15 years
Something
ago?
like that.
Maybe
Yeah.
a long, long time ago. And I went and I found somebody who did it.
Hmm.
And I was amazed because a lot of times people think with chiropractors, oh, I got to go there for 6 months and every 3 times a week. With the ART therapy, they like my guy would kick me out within 2, 3 visits.
Hmm.
Now I didn't have anything too severe, but it was like, come in, 1, 2, all right, you're done. Bye. See ya. I don't need you here anymore. And
Hmm.
let's start here. Why don't you explain what ART therapy is?
Okay. So ART therapy is basically where you're taking the muscle and you're applying a pressure against the muscle and you're going through the full movement of the muscle. And as you do that, you're breaking apart adhesions and scar tissue. And in doing so, that frees up the fascia and that frees up the muscle. And that allows then when you adjust, it allows you to get a deeper adjustment because a lot of chiropractors will adjust, but they don't do the muscle work. And the problem is that if you get scar tissue on your muscles, ligaments, and tendons, it's going to prevent you from moving as well compared to where if you do the ART and then you adjust, you're going to be able to change things a lot quicker because you're changing the entire joint complex. And so by doing so, you're actually going to be able to not only free up the joint easier, but you're going to be able to get things moving better and you're going to be able to fix movement patterns so that you're really getting to the root of the problem. So something doesn't just keep happening over and over again. Hence the reason I'm having to go back all the time.
There's another therapy that I recently learned about, and I don't know how similar or different it is.
Okay.
It's called structural muscle integration.
Okay. I don't know a ton about that yet, but I believe that's kind of like going along the lines a little bit more of functional medicine or functional movement along with
It
it.
is, and I guess it says it's stretching the fascia, and they
Mm-hmm.
go down the whole body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing to think about your fascia is that your fascia in the entire body is all connected. It's how everything is connected. Okay. And if people want to know what fascia is, it's when you're cutting a steak and you get that connective tissue that you're pulling that piece of meat away from. And it kind of like, you got to cut off that gristle. Okay. That's kind of that's what the fascia is basically. And the thing about it is that if you have fascial adhesions in your low back, that could easily affect how your neck moves or how you get, injuries in your shoulders and stuff. Same thing with your feet. If your feet have fascial issues, then, that can affect your knees, that can affect your hips. And what we're learning more and more about the body is how everything is connected. And by correcting these fascial issues and by doing the ART and doing other, things, then you're going to actually be able to free everything up. And some people that have old injuries that they thought, oh, this will never be fixed. Like they've got an old knee injury and you start correcting the muscles around it in the fascia, that allows the joint to move again the way that it should. And that then allows the person to actually get back to the proper movement pattern so that they can start enjoying life the way they want to again.
And that's what I used to go for. And I still go to get touch ups to go, hey, I want to squat deeper.
Right.
And so help me free up whatever is stuck so that I can get into a deeper movement. And the same thing happened in the upper shoulders and neck. Everything was kind of stuck together or something was stuck that was causing effects in other areas. And you don't realize that they are all connected. And so when they release the one area, the other parts would start to move and together it would be great. And it's funny because when I coach soccer, these kids would invariably hurt themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they go for PT. I'm like, stop wasting your time. Nothing is going to happen at PT. I'm like, go see this doctor. And they'd all like hem and haw at me. And then when the PT wasn't working, then they'd go and they're like, oh my God, that's incredible. I'm like, yeah, I told you that. You got to listen. And it's good when you have a muscle injury like that or something to be able to recover much, much quicker.
Oh, I agree, because the thing is a lot of times, you can stretch and strengthen a muscle all you want, but if something's off in the fascia, just like you talk about with squatting deeper, if your calves are super tight, you'll never squat deep because you're not able to put your weight on the back of your heels because your calves basically won't let you like go all the way down deep. So then you work the calves and you get the calves loose, then all of a sudden everything else is loose or going up, and now you can squat deeper. So
So true. Now you go beyond this because I know you also do nutritional blood testing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
sure. Okay. So the nutritional blood testing, a lot of people, when they go to the chiropractors, I mean, chiropractic kind of has let's call it a black eye, because some people, like you said, they're like, oh, they want me to go for forever and they want me to keep coming no matter what and kind of deal. And some of that is part of the reason sometimes you have people coming back over and over again is because they have a big issue. Or the other issue is too, is they keep doing the same thing that caused it. But, you know, one of the things that people don't, our diets these days are absolutely terrible. Like the average American, eats a ton of processed food, and and I'm guilty of this too. We sometimes you're busy and you just stop and get a coffee and a Dunkin' Donuts breakfast wrap in the morning or something like that. And it's not the healthiest kind of thing. But the issue is that we're not getting the vitamins and minerals we used to in our food, and so because of that, we try and supplement. Well, if you look at supplementation, there's a lot of times where what I was doing is I was telling my patient, well, here, try this supplement or try this supplement. And some would work, some would not. And I was kind of frustrated because it sounded like they had, what this thing was going to take care of. And so I started looking into the idea of like, okay, how can I give them the supplement they need where I'm not having them buy a bunch of stuff that they actually don't need? And that's when I found science-based nutrition, and I started, their company actually does nutritional blood testing. And so we use them, and they have an AI algorithm that literally goes through your blood work, and it shows, what minerals you don't have, what vitamins you're low on, what your CBC is, the normal blood test stuff as well. And it allows us to actually get what supplements that patient needs. And then we can, get them on that supplement regime. Like I had one patient, he was going to the doctor but he was tired all the time. Well, he was really low on his vitamin D, and his vitamin D was in the normal range of 30 to 120. Well, his was 33. And so if your vitamin D is that low, your energy levels are going to be, terrible. Your hormone production is going to be terrible. You're going to have issues with hair loss. You're going to have issues with a lot of things not functioning properly. And one of the things that, even though he was within the normal range, we got him on the vitamin D and a couple other supplements, and all of a sudden he's just ticking right back up. His energy levels increased. He started going, you know what? I suddenly had more drive. I had more desire to do more stuff, but then I couldn't do it yet because my body wasn't there yet. But now my body's starting to get there and feel better. So that's been a huge case, and one of those I talk a lot about, just because people don't realize that when you get your blood work done at the doctors, they take the average of everybody in the area, and the average is what they base it off of. Well, during this nutritional blood testing, we actually base it off the numbers back in the 1950s because people had higher rates of vitamin D, higher rates of vitamin C, iodine, manganese, all these things in their blood. And so we base it off those numbers because that actually gives us, a healthier person overall. So we're actually getting better than what modern day people live because they're just taking the average.
And again, if you're within range, they just ignore it.
Well, yeah, because you're in range. And so like, you're like, oh, if his doctor told him several times, well, I mean, you're good, and he's like, but I saw it and I'm like, dude, this is terrible. I mean, this is like, you need to get on this big time real quick, because vitamin D is major immune function. And there's a lot of people getting autoimmune disease these days, and they don't realize that, if your gut is not working right and, you're not having the right vitamins and minerals, then you're going to be depressed. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be, tired all the time. You're going to have brain fog. And 99% of the people I run into, those are all issues they deal with. I mean, we never had this much depression and anxiety when I was a kid. You never heard about it. But these days you hear about it all the time.
What do you think is the cause of that?
A lot of it, I would say, is the stuff that's, the chemicals that we put on ourselves. Like, I was actually watching Diary of a CEO podcast while doing notes or listening into it in the background. And he had a toxicologist on there. And they were talking about, aluminum and how aluminum is an antiperspirant. And we put antiperspirant on our area, in our armpits, an area that is very absorbable, and it goes right to our lymphatic system. And the problem is aluminum has been exactly linked to cancer. And, the other idea too is the fact that if you have high levels of aluminum in your blood, then, you experience anxiety, you experience depression, you experience hair loss, some people get hirsutism, and some people will actually start to get hormone issues, and a lot of them will get autoimmune issues. And it's something that we're doing because we don't, obviously nobody wants to have sweaty pits and show off that you're at a business meeting and it looks like you're nervous. But it's the idea that you're putting this substance on you, and it's got a lot of chemicals that are actually really bad for you. And it's not only that's in our stuff that we put on ourselves to try and look better, but you also got to think about the other thing is that with our food, a lot of people probably don't want to hear this, but California came out and they started saying, hey, look, you can't have this level of lead in your food. And a lot of people don't realize that lead tastes just like cinnamon. Okay. Now, we all know that if you buy a house, it can't have lead paint in it because the kids will eat the lead paint chips, and that causes all kinds of issues. Well, they were using lead instead of cinnamon because it was cheaper, and they were putting it in Lunchables, and they were putting it in those applesauce packs that, you see all the kids eating these days. Well, they were using lead instead of using cinnamon because it tastes just the same. And so California had to outlaw that.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. I know recently the news had a lot about Fruit Loops, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and the colors. And I've heard that before for a lot of kids. They do have issues with it. And we've talked about this before. In other countries, this stuff is illegal.
Exactly.
It's only in America that you get these kind of chemicals, and also sugar versus corn syrup in foods, and a whole bunch of other different additives that are in there. I'm surprised, though. How is it that you're allowed to put lead in food and not disclose it?
Well, that's the thing about it. There's no FDA regulation about it. So you can't sell a house with, lead in the paint, but you can put it in the food and it's no problem. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's causing the same issue. How is this legal? And it's just because there's no regulation on it, because nobody ever thought they would do it. So that's why, the idea of how many kids eat Lunchables and stuff like that, and there's like high levels of lead in there, and to make it more palatable. So it's kind of crazy.
There's tons of supplements out there. How do you know what's good, what's bad, what's real? I mean, it seems like today I go down the aisle in Costco and there's a million different things I can buy.
So the problem is that when it comes to supplementation, quite honestly, it really is, you get what you pay for. And a lot of people, there are a lot of companies, and something that's kind of scary is that the drug companies have been buying up some of the more natural companies. Like you had Standard Process is now owned by, I think it's Pfizer, or is actually owned by Merck, or one of them. And then, some of these other ones, like Nature's Health or Body by God, kind of thing. It was the issue is that the supplements are getting bought up and they're putting in a lot of fillers. And the issue with that is that, these fillers wreak havoc on your body and your body's not able to really process it. So you're not really getting the supplement that you want. So your best bet, and why there's so much stuff out there too, is that, you do have to kind of research which brands have shown to be the most effective. But if you're paying a higher dollar price, you're normally getting a better supplement. Like Metagenics, Designs by Health or Designs for Health. Those are two great companies, and there's a lot of products that they have. We use Designs for Health actually. And one of the things is a lot of people, you go out and you see a multivitamin. Okay. Centrum Senior pills, okay, are known as bedpan bullets in the nursing home facilities because they literally do not break down. There's not enough acid to break down the Centrum to get the vitamins and all that. So you're taking this multivitamin and it's not even breaking down in the person's body and it's just being excreted. And they said they would hear sounds at night of these things just hitting the bedpans. And so, all of a sudden it'd be dunk, 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 and it was pretty common. So if you're going to get a multivitamin, and if you want to get a good supplement, you normally are going to have to pay a little bit more. And it does help to go to a natural health food store because they'll tend to be able to give you stuff that's going to be a lot better. If it's cheaper, it's normally going to have a lot of a filler. You go to Costco, you're probably not getting the best deal. You're probably not getting what you're really looking for. So.
And it's hard to tell because you can read the bottle and the bottle says XYZ, but.
Sure. But one of the things that to kind of test it out, and this is why we do the nutritional blood testing, is because seeing what you need to get, and then one thing we do at our office is we sell our supplements at the Amazon price, and the reason we do that is our goal is I'd rather be a lot more healthy people out there, paying, making just $1 off each supplement versus the idea of making $20 or $30 off each supplement, because then that becomes out of the range of everybody over time. But then, the other thing is too, is the fact that most people will think, oh, well, it's the same thing. And you can tell them it's not the same thing. This one's going to be better. This is going to be better. But they're still going to go, well, on Amazon, this one's $10. The one you want me to buy is $20. Money's tight right now. I'm going to go ahead and get the $10 one. So.
We started with money. We're back to money.
We are. It always goes full circle.
Are there certain supplements people should take, or is it more specific to where they're at?
Well, I have a couple that I think everybody should take. And this is my own personal philosophy, but the research tends to back it up a little bit. Vitamin D. We do not get enough vitamin D in our diet. And this is why a lot of people, they start taking vitamin D and within a month's time, they start feeling, sometimes even 2 weeks, they start feeling a huge boost and they start feeling better. So vitamin D is a big one. There was actually a test done where they were giving the dogs 125,000 units of IU of vitamin D a day, and the dogs had no problem. So vitamin D is actually very hard to overindulge in. One of the things is we're not going outside and playing as much anymore. We're not going outside and hanging out outside. We're in the office or we're at home. We're on the computer. We're doing business. Even if we're sitting outside, the sun provides us with natural vitamin D, but everybody's worried about skin cancer. And so vitamin D is one of the big ones that, for me, I think pretty much everybody should be on. And the other one is magnesium. Magnesium does over 500 different processes in the body. And the problem is it's the type of magnesium you're getting. A lot of people will do magnesium citrate, which tends to cause bowel issues because it will pretty much, you're going to be going to the bathroom a lot. And the ones that you want really are going to be magnesium malate or glycinate. Magnesium glycinate is excellent. So those right there, magnesium and vitamin D, easily two of the best supplements out there. Vitamin D is also huge in your immune system. And now that it's getting colder suddenly, people are going to start, worrying about getting sick, and vitamin D is the way to go.
And a lot of this can also help you live longer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I know we were going to talk about longevity, and I'm doing a lot of work in this space, but it's really not longevity. It's increasing health span.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you're going to live till whatever, 85.
Mm-hmm.
If you look around, some people have a straight line down from maybe 60 to 85. And by the time they're in their 70s, life is no longer fun.
Right.
And there's other people who, from 60 to 84 have a very slight line down. And then their last 6 months, it's a rapid decline.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of prefer the latter. I'd rather, stay healthy as long as I can. And because of that, I started to look into what are the right supplements for longevity,
mm-hmm.
what are the ways of eating, health, everything else. And I mean, it at the core is non-processed foods, movement, and purpose, like having a reason to live and a reason to do and growing and not just sitting around doing nothing or playing games or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
being actively engaged in life. And there is a whole host of new studies coming out, and Cutting Edge says, hey, we might be able to increase life. We can definitely start to increase our health span, though. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Like, let's talk about going, hit each one of those things you just talked about. Eating healthier, eating less processed foods, more organic foods, more stuff that is, more natural. There's, if you look at the size of what the first bananas look like, they were full of big seeds, and, they've been bred now to be higher in sugar. So you're not getting as much of the nutrients that you used to. Same thing with avocados. Avocados used to be, probably about this big. And now, you're getting these giant avocados just because they've been bred that way. Problem is that, if you're eating more healthy, organic, yes, it might be a little bit more expensive. But if you look at it this way, if you meal prep and, because everybody's busy, but if you can meal prep a few meals, it will help you that much more to not only save money in the long run, because you're not going out to Chick-fil-A and getting something that's got a lot of seed oils and stuff like that in it, which is going to hurt your body's digestive system. But the other thing is too, is you're going to be getting a lot of more vitamins, nutrients from those natural sources of food. Plus cooking your own food, and meal prepping it so that you're eating lunch out maybe once a week versus 5 times a week, is a big deal, because a lot of times those restaurants, they're trying to make money. So they're going to use whatever they can to like sit there and, cook. And if that means using a seed oil versus using, a regular oil, then, like a vegetable oil or even an olive oil, then, they're going to make that change. The other thing is too, is when you're cooking your own food, what's going into it, what it's going to be. And let's face it, to make things tastier, they're going to be additives like MSG and stuff like that, that also, sometimes known carcinogens. So cooking your own food is definitely one of the best ways you can do that. You talk about the idea of having a purpose in life. How many people do you know that had a job, they retire, and 6 months later they're dead? And it's because all they do is sit around and they don't have any purpose. And when you see somebody who has a purpose, even if it's just going out and volunteering and helping, those people live happier, healthier lives mentally, because they realize people are depending upon them, and they go out there and they do more. They make more conscious decisions for their health. One of the things that was kind of tough, I know my grandfather he started having more health issues when my grandmother went into the nursing home for dementia. And they're seeing the fact that she basically was there, and his purpose was kind of taking care of her Well, he was going out meeting with friends, and then, he still lived pretty happy, healthy until about 84. And that was 10 years ago. So, when he had a purpose, even when it was just mowing the lawn and keeping the lawn, all together and just keeping everything looking good and going out and meeting with friends all the time, that's one of the big things. People that have a higher social group, higher social networks, they tend to have more longevity and they tend to focus more because they're going out and doing stuff. They're exercising, they're moving. Another thing that for people is, like you talk about, getting out and moving. As we get older, we all know that our muscles tend to atrophy a little bit. Well, one of the greatest things you can start doing, even if you're 60 years old, is starting to lift weights. For women, it's one of the number one things to prevent osteoporosis is lifting weights, because if you're lifting weights, then you're putting stress and load on your body, your muscles. Your body's not going to see like, hey, we don't need this anymore. They're like, oh, we still need these muscles. So it's going to raise your levels of growth hormone, raise your levels of testosterone. The other thing is too, is that if you're putting load on the bones, for women, doing squats is a great thing, even if it's, just the bar or just doing body squats, because you're loading the bones. And so those leg bones are going to stay stronger, healthier, and you have less chance of osteoporosis as time goes on because your bones are still going to be building. So that's one of the biggest things I say for anybody is lifting weights. And as far as cardio goes, you do not have to be a marathon runner to live longer. Quite honestly, they're showing that sometimes that there's a lot of marathon runners that, are 56 and stuff like that have heart attacks because they've overstressed their heart all those years of, running and stuff. So you don't have to go hard, getting out and walking. This is why the Mediterranean diet is so great, because in that culture, those people, half the time they go and they walk to the grocery store every day. Well, they're walking 2 or 3 miles and they go and they make the same route every day, but they're using their muscles, they're moving, and movement is life. That is one of my key things that I tell people all the time when they get injured and they're like, well, should I just rest and sit around? I'm like, no, even if your back hurts, you need to get up, putter around a little bit, don't lift anything. This is not the time to move furniture, but this is definitely the time to, get out, putter around, check things out, just do little simple things, walk a little bit, just because your body uses movement and in the muscles to pump the lymphatic system. So that keeps you happier, healthier, because with movement, it automatically raises your dopamine levels. It raises your serotonin. And so you're going to feel better anyway. The final thing is balance for longevity is huge. And a lot of people don't realize that when you basically are working on your balance, you are making your life so much better after the age of 60. And this is, I saw another doctor. I got this tip from her, but she was an orthopedist, and she said, all you need to do to work on your balance every day is while you're brushing your teeth, stand on one foot. And what that does is that excites those motoneurons in your brain down to your foot, and you're keeping that connection live and keeping it going so that you're working on your balance. You're keeping your inner ear, realizing you're working on those muscles that are the stabilizers. And the problem is a lot of people, as they get older, they want to sit more. And if you sit a lot and if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's a key thing. So just brushing your teeth, standing on one foot. Now, obviously don't do it in a slick bathroom, but, make sure you've got balance and stability, everything that's going on there. If you have to hold on to something, do it. But working on your balance as you get older is key, because there is a 85% higher correlation of dying as soon as you break a hip within the next year. So it's like once you break a hip, things just go downhill. Now, granted, with hips these days, they're doing the surgery and you're out walking that day. But the whole point of that is because they want you to use it and make sure that doesn't keep happening. So one of the biggest things for longevity, definitely working on balance.
And I lift heavy weights, and I know that it makes my bones stronger. And it, again, it keeps you from osteoporosis, or, guys start shrinking. So it works with that. And then I do movement-based exercises. So yoga is very single leg. Love many yoga. Times. And the other one I've always loved is GMB.io. So they've got more animal movements in there, and being able to do that. And And that's literally what it is that flexibility prevents the fall.
It really
And
does.
and it also keeps you stronger. In other words, even if you're not going to fall, but like you go slightly off balance, you can handle yourself, so to speak, which is, I guess,
Exactly.
preventing the fall, but you're better able to hold on to all of that stuff. So it's extremely important to do that. And I don't think people realize you should start, I would say, start getting serious in your 40s,
Yeah,
so that by the time you hit 60, you're at such peak that you've got a higher baseline to decline from.
I agree. I agree 100% because if you start in your 40s and you keep lifting and doing exercises like that, movement patterns, you're going to, your body's still going to be firing like it should. I mean, this is why you would see the old farmer that was 80 years old that was still strong as an ox, and would be able to lift all these heavy stuff just because he was doing those movements every day. And the other thing is too, is the fact that if you start lifting now and you're in your 40s, when you get to your 60s, you're still going to have the muscle tone of when you're in your 50s. Okay. If you're lifting through your 60s, you're still going to have that same muscle tone going into your 70s. And then when you're in your 80s, you'll have the muscle tone of people that are in their 60s. Well, that's a huge difference as far as I'm concerned. Because if you're 60 and somebody's 80 and they've got the same muscle tone as you because they've been working out the entire time, that shows. And they're going to have a much higher quality of life as time goes on.
And that's the key. I mean, we talk about money and money compounds.
Mm-hmm.
All of these other things compound. Your health decline or your health increase also compounds. And that's the key. And I think too often people don't pay attention until it's past the point of no return or hard return.
I
Either
agree.
or.
Well, just like with money, if you invest, just a little bit, it's one of the great things I like to tell patients all the time. An ounce of prevention is worth a gallon of cure.
Mm-hmm.
And with money, that's so true too. So even that's how you invest $100, a week when you're 30 and suddenly you're a millionaire when you're 60,
I love universal principles. They work everywhere.
Yes, they
One
do.
of the other things in the longevity space is autophagy. Can you explain what that is and what we
Sure.
can do about it?
So autophagy is when your body basically cleans up. Okay. We have more stress in our lives now in a month's time than our great grandparents had their entire lives. We have more stimulation. And the problem with that is the fact that we're constantly stressed, we're constantly going. And so autophagy is where your body, when it's resting and digesting, actually takes the leftover stuff or the bad stuff and it breaks it down and it sends it out for waste. And if you think about basically it's like your body's changing the oil. It's keeping everything fresh, keeping everything new, putting new brakes on. It's keeping that car running the way that it should. And it's your body's natural way of doing maintenance on yourself. And so one of the greatest ways to get autophagy and make autophagy easier is that you do intermittent fasting. And so I've been doing intermittent fasting now since probably February. And I started off with doing 36-hour intermittent fasting. I've now gotten to the point where I do 72-hour intermittent fasts. And the great thing about that is that on day 2, I have a ton of energy and I have no brain fog. I'm thinking clear, all because my body is breaking down all the bad stuff and sending it out and cleaning my insides out. And so the great thing about that is then, I'm functioning at a higher level. And so to get into autophagy, you normally have to be intermittent fasting for about 20 to 24 hours. Everybody's different, I mean, some people have fast metabolisms, but when you're doing that and your body's starting to break down all that old stuff, if you have an injury, like I tweaked my knee earlier this year doing a boot camp. And, when I do the intermittent fasting over 24 hours, my knee feels better and I'm able to respond more. Now, if I go and eat a lot of sugar and because I'm not going to lie, I enjoy pastry. But it's one of those things where you know you will feel your injuries more when you have a lot of sugar in your system because your body's just got all these extra carbs and you have high levels of insulin. And so when your body doesn't have the high levels of insulin and then it's using fat as its fuel source, you have more ketones. And so your body will not only, break down all the bad proteins in your system and get rid of all the junk faster, but the other thing it's going to do is it's going to use ketones, which is going to make you sharper. It's part of the reason I made that whole health talk at the speakeasy, talking about the idea before you do a presentation, it's good to fast for 12 to 14 hours because your body's going to be using ketonic energy or ketones, and then your brain's going to be sharper. And you're also going to be thinking clearer. You're going to be able to have less brain fog and you're going to be able to answer questions better. So if you're ever presenting or doing any kind of like talk or anything like that, it's always good to fast before you do so.
And I don't go that long. I go shorter periods. I think what people don't realize is when you eat, you pull all the resources from your body into the digestion. And so all your blood and everything is working to digest food and it's not doing the other things. So when you stop eating and you're not spending so much energy on digestion, your body can go do all the other things that it should do. So
Exactly.
even if you can get your window down to 7 or 8 hours and not 20 meals like some of these people say, and that's the problem. There's so much different information out there and we don't have clarity on what is exactly right. Have you looked at any of the longevity meds that are used for autophagy, like rapamycin or anything like that?
Rapamycin. Another one that I actually take myself is NMN. Basically, what it does is it helps to clean up the mitochondria of your cells so that the NMN causes your mitochondria to function better. And as we age, our mitochondria start to break down a little bit more. And if you remember high school biology, the mitochondria is the engine of the cell. Well, we've all driven a clunker a time or two in our lives at some point. And if the engine goes, things don't run the way they should. So if your mitochondria is functioning better, then your skin's going to look better, your hair's going to be better, everything's going to be better. So that's why NMN is a really good one. Another one that really it pairs real well with NMN is going to be resveratrol. And that's got a lot of healthy help. And the two together are really great for heart health and actually performance. So those are two of the ones. The ripamycin, though, is excellent as well, just because the fact is that it allows your body to function at that higher level. And we're finding more and more things like this that are giving us more of the fountain of youth because these things actually help our bodies to bring back our hormones levels back to normal and bring back, our dopamine and the other things so that we're actually functioning at a better level.
And one of the things that I learned is as you age, the body is not as good at maintaining all of these things. It naturally does not keep up. And so there is a difference. And so at that point, you've got to either supplement or do things differently or figure it out to make it work. The last area I'd like to touch on is breath work.
Okay.
So I'd love to get your thoughts and what you've seen with it.
Okay. So breath work, it's amazing how breath work can help everybody. There's a lot of things on YouTube you can find and all that, but the reason it's important is when you breathe in and you breathe out and you take a minute for your body to kind of breathe in and relax for a second, and then you're breathing out. Remember, you're bringing in all the good stuff. You're breathing out the bad stuff. One of the main ways our body gets rid of bacteria, viruses, and stuff is by using our lungs to blow stuff out because our lymphatic system all over our body actually deposits into the lungs. And that's how we get rid of most of the stuff in our body that's bad. And so by you breathe it out and you're getting rid of the toxins, different things like that. But the other thing is too, is the fact that when you take a minute, you breathe in and then you kind of close your lips a little bit and you kind of go like that. You have nerve sensors in your lips that actually will cause your brain to calm down. So what happens is that part of the reason when people meditate, they will breathe in and then out like this, because when you breathe out like that, your mind automatically focuses on your lips and your breath. And that allows all the stuff that's in your mind that's causing you to be anxious and everything like that, that takes it all down. So doing 5 minutes of breath work can really help to not only clear your head, but it can cause your anxiety levels to go down, your cortisol levels to go down. All right. And, if everybody has people having high levels of stress, chronic stress, and you're getting those chronic levels of stress to go down just a little bit by just taking 5 minutes to breathe and just kind of think on a thing, then it opens your mind back up and you're no longer going to be in fight or flight, but you're actually going to be ready to go and kind of be clear headed and thinking about what's going on. So breath work, I highly, highly recommend, especially for people that have high stress jobs. If you can take 5 minutes of breath work in the morning, even before you kind of get your day started, even in bed. And then if you do 5 minutes of breath work before you go to sleep, you'll sleep so much better. There's plenty of studies that show doing breath work right before you go to sleep allows your mind to be calmer. Your mind won't be racing. You won't be thinking as much. So you're able to actually get more restful sleep and you'll have higher levels of dopamine and serotonin and you'll feel better overall.
And I don't think people realize how much their breath and how they breathe is tied to their emotional state. You can control your emotional state with breathing, which is what you're basically saying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton of different types of breath work out there, different rhythms and so forth. And they all have their own results. So certain ones do X, other ones do Y, and you can actually create anxiety through breath work and you can take it away through breath work. So all of these things have their own signaling systems. And it, if you think about it, if you get scared, you start to breathe a certain way. And if you can change the way you breathe in that moment, you will naturally calm yourself down. It's all just reflective systems within the body. And we're starting to understand now how they all kind of come together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite impressive.
Yes, it is.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Know that you are blessed. Know that even in the moment, even when things seem might be against you, you're blessed for what you have. There are plenty of people in the world that would love to be where you're at. So know that you're blessed.
And that is very, very true, especially for those people listening to this podcast. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
It's all going to work out. If you take a breath, relax, go through your day, it's all going to work out. It's not on your time. That's okay. It's headed there. It's all going to work out.
And that is true. Eventually, if you keep showing up. If you were to give an 18-year-old a specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
You think you have all the time in the world right now, but you don't. So live every day like it's your last. Tell people you love them when you get the chance. And if something scares you, take a breath, do it anyway, because we all have stories.
We do all have stories. If people would like to learn more about you and your practice, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram, Triple Crown Chiropractic _ or you can go to www.triplecrownchiropractic.com. Or you can find us on Facebook, just Triple Crown Chiropractic in Walton, Kentucky.
And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today. I do a lot of what we talked about, and so much we didn't even get to. My goal is to age gracefully and well, to live and enjoy as I get older. So I take actions today, like we talked about, to ensure that will happen. Look, it's a long-term game and it compounds up and down, and you've got to start earlier in life than you can imagine. At the end of the day, I want to be the last man running. I don't want to age and have miserable time and complain about the problems. So you got to take action. And we're bringing you some different ways to do it. You got to figure out what works for you and your body, because we're all different. By the way, if you know someone who might benefit from this episode, would you do me a favor? Would you share it with them? I would appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Next week, we have Jen Goldman on to talk about optimizing time and money. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.